What is up, good people? Jungle Inc. here. Hope you're doing well. Still a pretty red day out there for crypto. Bitcoin down about 2.5%, sitting at 61,000. Ethereum down about 2%, about 3,000 even. XRP pretty flat, 50 cents. Nothing major, but definitely no signs that we're going to come firing out of here, going back to the only up environment. Now, last week I did a video. I said, this shouldn't surprise you. You shouldn't be asking what's going on, And someone said, well, if you're so smart and you knew this, why didn't you tell us to sell? Well, look, I'm not a fortune teller. I didn't know that Iran was going to launch missiles and drones directly at Israel for the first time in history. I'm not a fortune teller. But when you see that going down, understand it's going to have an effect on financial markets. Magical coins are not excluded from that. Extra risk on the table. Where do we go from here? I don't know. Again, I'm not a geopolitical expert. We'll have to see. I'm kind of biased because I just in general feel we're going to have expanding war and conflict as we continue forward. And on top of that, your bigger risk in the short term, I don't think any of this will derail us long term from the coming crypto bull run. But in the short term, the current economic state with the Federal Reserve keeping a very restrictive policy, keeping interest rates higher for longer, the longer we stay up here, the more likelihood that there's some significant problems. And if they're going to be totally data-driven here, if they're going to wait till those numbers look good, and they're like, okay, this problem is cleared, it's going to be wreck city. And it's common sense. When you look at the debt that our own government is holding in businesses and households, if you clear this problem, if you don't have a little vision looking into the future saying, we got to be careful here, you're going to have a ton of problems on your hand, and I expect we will. The Federal Reserve was belligerent about starting this current tightening cycle. They were way too late, and they kept saying, it's just transitory. They got to know what they're doing here. Look at how much money was just helicoptered out there. Of course, you're going to have, rampant inflation. You had to know that was coming. They should have started earlier at this, but they're like, no, we're going to be data dependent here. We're going to watch the numbers, and by the time the numbers show what you're looking for, it's too late, and that's what happened. Do I think that they are going to be proactive here and make the correct decisions and be able to look off into the future and make those judgment calls? Absolutely not. They totally screwed up when they enter this tightening cycle. I don't think they're going to land with perfection coming out of this. But we're not going to clear all these risks. We're not going to know exactly where the bottom is. I always remember Rob Art's quote, we're not playing a game of perfection here. Just looking for value, trying to look at the peak of the next bull run. Is this a good entry point? I think there's a lot of good deals. I'm just going to continue to acquire quality crypto assets as we work through this with the understanding things can get much worse with expanding war in Europe and now the Middle East. Things are likely to get much worse with the current, economic state in the United States. But you can't clear all of that risk before, you continue buying because you'll be too late. This is a forward-looking activity. Find your value, understand what's likely coming. There's going to be turmoil. People are going to say this time is different. We're not going to have a bull run. That's all we're going to get. You're going to hear it. I guarantee you that. And just know on the other side of this stuff, probably not that too far down the road, we are going to continue on with growth and expansion of crypto. I'm still aiming for the back half of this year, quarter 3, quarter 4, understanding we're probably going to hit a little bit of summer doldrums once we get past the halving event, and there's not a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of scary stuff out there, but you gotta keep the mission going, finding value, invest for the long term, and know the fun and games, they're not that far off, and we will continue onwards and upwards. Just be able to weather the storm. Now, Fox News analyst Eleanor Terrett, she was reporting on a talk that was given by former lead enforcement lawyer for the SEC, Layden Stewart, and this was so bizarre. She was talking about the Ripple and Coinbase cases. She now works in the private sector, of course. And she says that, one of these lawsuits brought against companies like Ripple and Coinbase likely make its way to the Supreme Court, with key issues on what constitutes a security still unsettled. I would disagree with that. And I'm not an attorney. I'm definitely not the lead attorney for the SEC. I'm just a bozo on YouTube. But listen to what she said. Stewart answered that the token plus all the other stuff around the token, well, that's the security. And you obviously can't register the other stuff, so what do? You just register the token. What is she talking about? Our example in law for this is the Howey case. Howey Company sold orange groves, But it was the other stuff that needed to be registered. The contractual agreements combined with the raising of funds, that's what needed to be, registered. We didn't register the oranges or the orange groves. It was exactly the other stuff that was registered or should have been registered with the SEC. That's what the court case states. And, this is maddening because she knows well and good. Look, again, I'm just a doofus making videos on YouTube. I'm no attorney. I don't work for the SEC. She understands this. But they just twist the narrative to their liking, to their benefit, because they can get away with it. They can bring frivolous lawsuits because they're wasting taxpayer money. Trust me, she understands the Howey case. She understands you don't register the oranges or the tokens. She gets that. But they will keep pushing this narrative until Congress steps in. And that's really who we need to focus all of our angst and anger towards. Government needs to fix this and pass clear laws. Once they do that, you can't do this crap. And I agree, there probably should be some new requirements for people like Ripple and the Ethereum Foundation and Cardano. They have information that the investing public does not. And as an asset class, an investable, commodity, it's never going to get prime time while that's the case. We all have to have the pertinent information to do proper analysis before your big money's really going to come flooding in here, especially with altcoins. You got to have it. But that's up to Congress to write those laws. The SEC can't make the world as they think it should be. They have to follow the law like the rest of us. Now, we're seeing a new stablecoin bill introduced. I think stablecoins will be the first area where we see headwinds, where we actually get something across the finish line. This one is introduced by Gillibrand and Loomis. They're always introducing something. I don't know if this particular one gets through, but you see people like Ripple and PayPal and other people within traditional finance. It's not just your crypto people looking to issue stable coins. It's a great business. You hold on to the funds, earn interest, and give your dummy tokens out as representation. It's an important technology. It can be used effectively, but they're really going to have to step in here and make sure that those reserves are properly custodied and all the laws are followed and investors and users are protected. So I think stablecoins will fall first, and then we'll roll off to the other areas of crypto regulations. While stablecoins aren't the most interesting area for me, it is an important one, and I think it'll get the ball rolling. For this country to get serious about rolling out regulatory frameworks, something's got to be first. I think it's going to be stablecoins. I've been kind of out of it the last couple days, all the news, but on Twitter I've seen a lot of chatter about this final pre-trial conference that's scheduled, and I'm sure this has already been addressed by all the crypto YouTubers. I haven't got to see them yet, so I'll just cover this briefly. But remember, there is no trial. The SEC dropped that issue because they want to jump straight to appeals. They don't want to have to go through a full trial with Brad and Chris and probably lose there and waste more time. So they said, all right, fine, we dropped those charges and we're just going to deal with just the stuff with Ripple the company. I'm not sure why that's still on the schedule, but I think it's just something that needs to be corrected. There is no more trial. We're not going that direction now. I think the one thing to keep your eye on is the Ripple opposition brief, which is due April 22nd. That's going to give us a lot of interesting information. And what I'm looking for is how many of those sales that Ripple, took part in to institutions, the ones that were deemed a security offering, how many took place in the United States? In theory, the overseas sales should not be under the jurisdiction of the SEC, should not be really applicable for fines, penalties, or disgorgements. Of course, they'll try to pull some of those back if they can, but I think that's the next big drop there. What is Ripple's, counter argument to that ridiculous $2 billion penalty proposal that the SEC put up? Is that a big deal for investors? Do we really care as XRP holders? Not really. I mean, that again is going to come down to Ripple the company and the fines and penalties, I guess, they eventually have to pay, but it sure is interesting. And I would love to see the SEC take a big L here and have, very small percentage of those sales actually applicable to any sort of fines and penalties they could collect. It would just be a really bad look. So I'm interested to see what the records show, because I don't think we know at this point in time. And I really hope that information isn't redacted and we still don't know what percentage is actually sold here in the U.S. I'm sure because it's so important to the center of their argument that it will be made public, but we'll have to wait and see. At this point, unless we get a settlement, nothing really changes. There's still going to be some risk on the horizon that an appeals judge may change the ruling of this court case. I don't think it'll happen, but risk is risk. If it's on the table, it's on the table. You have to factor that in. But that's going to take so long. This should, take us right through this bull run. The first one in history where XRP can trade freely on the U.S. exchanges with direct fiat liquidity. We've never had that before. I think it's going to make a world of difference. I wouldn't expect at this point in time a settlement of some sort, but you never know. Anything can happen day to day. Until then, just know this, XRP will continue to trade, and that's as good as we can hope for. And I believe once we get into full, crazy town here, it's going to make all the difference. We don't know till we see it. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the ability to take a U.S. crypto exchange, link it up to your account or your card, and just buy XRP is going to be wildly different than what we've seen in the past. And I think it's going to perform very well. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.